What's the hubbub? Zack Snyder made the strangest sex scene in Rebel Moon with male tentacle porn. But the Snyder groupies are grossed out by alien egg cuisine in the Supergirl movie directed by Craig Gillespie for the James Gunn DCU. They probably haven't heard of French cuisine like caviar, as one of my subscribers pointed out. We are dealing with man-child personalities. They are making dishonest arguments against actual reality. I've been saying over a year the Supergirl movie should do somewhere in $300 to $400 million range. The highest ceiling would be in $500 million range. But I digress. For the Snyder Glazers, they want to churn out fake stories, with the goal of James Gunn fired so in their dreams, Zack Snyder, who was fired before, would somehow get rehired. Then by magic revisionism, with Merlin at the helm, somehow a Restore the SnyderVerse happens, starring a now grandma-aged Lois Lane and Batman with their child together under the SnyderVerse. But damn boys, you can't take a Supergirl that is a bit more Han Solo in personality against bounty hunters instead of a female version of Clark Kent. They are literally highlighting she's not perfect, and it's less girl boss and more girl in a mess. Yet you can't see that because your knickers are so tightly wound up on woke worries. Oh no, a hero with a vagina delivering punches, not sandwiches. Then to top it off, you're also scared of alien cuisine, because it's just so crude. Meanwhile, the James Gunn haters can't even accept his tweets that got him fired were an RT prank. They still seemingly always give Zack a pass. He once said his version of Batman could cross the lines that Christopher Nolan's would not, by stating, quote, "No, Batman's cool. He gets to go to a Tibetan monastery and be trained by ninjas, okay? I want to do that, but he doesn't, like, get raped in prison. That could happen in my movie. If you want to talk about dark, that's how that would go," end quote. Not to mention, he did no favors to Cavill's receding hairline with how he styled Superman. That should be considered a crime against humanity and lack of Rogaine. No wonder edgelord Cal was grumpy and failed to see or give hope after Man of Steel with a cold gaze muttering how no one can stay good in this world. This recent jump the shark pretending Supergirl eats shit isn't the win they think it is. I'm embarrassed for them. I guess their parents didn't expose them to foods of different cultures. Their 5-star cuisine is chicken nuggets and fried foods from a Yelp review, I guess. 5 stars for man-child toddler menu foods. I mean, the whole point was just highlighting something otherworldly and alien you wouldn't see on Earth. Almost a Star Wars motif. Yum, let's top that off with blue milk. This is just the most recent dive into the ridiculous they've taken, though. They are still glazing any Snyder post on Instagram without context, and pretending some shared picture of a memory is news. Not just any news, but the news that they want regardless of it never being said. Zack Snyder hasn't got a return to DC announcement. He's working on at least 5 known non-DC projects that his supposed fans aren't even supporting. Yet somehow, no matter of his current status, you Snyder Rider fans are promoting him to have restored his DCEU. It's not the case, you stuck-up, half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herders. Speaking of scruffy, let's look at Mr. Phenom and his latest coverage for the Restore SnyderVerse bros.
This is what we need, baby. Like, just talking about the DCEU gets me excited. Like, I cannot wait to see this back.
Instead of just reading the cosmic book story, let's hear the supposed rumor from their Jesus himself, Matt McGloin.
DC versus Marvel rumor just went to a whole nother level. If you recall, back in November, when I told you our insiders said the Saudis want to bring back the SnyderVerse, possibly with Christopher Nolan, then I was told the Saudis are huge comic fans. I was even told the Saudis want to have a SnyderVerse level event that rivals Marvel. I was also told if Zack finishes his Justice League finales and maybe even the Dark Knight Returns, his end game is to team with the Russos for DC versus Marvel. We also know that Snyder is tight with Turki Al Sheikh. He's reportedly worth around $3 billion and is head of Saudi's entertainment fund. And he happens to be producing Zack Snyder's UFC Brawler movie, among other things. Well, I happened to be on Instagram earlier, and I came across Turkey's Instagram story where he happened to have an image posted of Robert Downey Jr. in Avengers Endgame, Oppenheimer, Sherlock Holmes, and Avengers Doomsday. I noticed a little tag on the image for Roseanne Media. I went to the page, and wouldn't you know, the first tagged post is a DC vs. Marvel promo. Take a look at the post, you see that Turkey liked it. So I did a little digging and went through some other posts. There's Batman post, Ben Affleck, Christian Bale from Nolan. There's a Spider-Man, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, their Star Wars posts, and he liked them all. Wouldn't you know that Roseanne Media just so happens to be his own production company? Also, I was told the Saudis are involved heavily in the WBD merger, which has since been confirmed. Two more interesting tidbits. Turkey Al Sheikh did a movie with Jeremy Irons, who happens to be Zack Snyder's choice to play Alfred. Turkey also released a comic book through his The Ring boxing promotion. Well, guess who wrote it? DC Comics writer Gail Simone, who happened to write Zack Snyder's Rebel Moon comic. I'm told Zack recommended her to Turkey. So looking at all the breadcrumbs, Turkey Al Sheikh, Saudis, Paramount, Zack Snyder, it's all lining up, folks.
Let me get this straight then. Your breadcrumbs of a rumor are from this guy? You actually believe, because he navigated some social media feeds, that he has real insider knowledge to pin your hopes on? Let's get real.
I know how this works. I know like, you know, it sounds rude, but like when people would say, oh, you can and can't do that. It's like, you know, like Batman can't, like, you know, we talked about like Batman can't shoot someone, Batman can't kill, Batman could do this, Superman can't do that, he can't kill Zod, blah, 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 all that stuff. And I'm like, it's hard for me to take that seriously. These superheroes can't get it up unless they go do some superhero action. Right. Because their sexuality is linked to their costume and their identity, you know.
Zack Snyder has no DC movies in development, in contract, or with release dates. Not only does Gunn have DC projects with release dates, we've seen articles from legitimate sites stating they'd keep the DCU intact. What is Zack working on? I'll help you. Snyder stands out, and none of it is DC related. He is still working on The Last Photograph, a film about two war photographers that has been in development for years. It officially found an investor, completed casting, and is currently in post-production for a 2027 release. Are you going to support it? It sure seems like you guys are more busy talking about the latest DCU news and attempting to dump on Supergirl than discussing this, an actual project from Zack. There is also an untitled Zack Snyder LAPD action movie. Snyder has been actively developing this live-action crime film as a stylistic pivot from his recent heavy science fiction and fantasy work. Another one is Planet of the Dead, a planned live-action sequel to his 2021 zombie hit Army of the Dead, which he is attached to direct. There is also Until the Last One, which is a project currently listed in early pre-production. Some of you may have heard as well, Escape from New York, a remake and reboot of the 80s classic franchise that he is actively developing. In addition to these, Snyder was previously reported to be developing a King Arthur film set in the American Gold Rush and an anime-style series called Army of the Dead Lost Vegas. So is there Zack Snyder DC news and an impending restore of the SnyderVerse? No. In some real DC news, by the way, did Jason Momoa hint at Lobo plans? It sounds like he's hyping up the idea of an R-rated or nothing approach. According to a Deadline article, he is revealing that he's had discussions with DC Studios bosses James Gunn and Peter Safran about the possibility of an R-rated Lobo movie. Momoa insisted he's not doing it if the offshoot is PG-13. It's all I want, and I promise I'm just going to put this out there right now. I do not have any interest in making a Lobo PG-13 movie, Momoa told Collider. So, we'll be a part of some other movies. If they want me, I'll be there. But if I make a solo movie, I'm not doing it unless it's rated R. Jason would love a solo Lobo movie, but first he shows up in other projects which he's used to. He stated to quote, "I mean, I think I'd like to, we talked about this, I'd love to do a solo film at some point. I think it'd be great to step into a couple other worlds first, like how we did with Aquaman." End quote. I can't say enough about the importance of different tones that Gunn wants to have for the DCU, by the way. Comic book flair with Superman, horror with Clayface, detective drama in Lanterns, and some R-rated with Peacemaker and potentially Lobo. We don't need the same sepia and Dark Knight tone in every movie. The Snyder flop-verse after Man of Steel lost its way quickly. Cashing in on Batman got them a poor movie, with a 70% drop in the second week of Batman vs. Superman. Then it saw the verse built around Batman, where Superman was fitting into his dark environment. Gunn has instead decided to start with a Superman saga, giving space from Reeves' Batman, but also launching multiple projects of diverse and different tones. Something for multiple fans is a good approach, in my humble opinion. Some are speculating Jason may have accidentally outed Adria Arjona as being Wonder Woman with recent comments. The Supergirl star who plays Lobo and is dating Adria was asked which future DCU characters he thinks he'd vibe with the most or want them to join the alien bounty hunter at the bar during an interview with Screen Rant. Jason Momoa, "Wonder Woman would be just as great." Screen Rant, "I'm rooting for my girl Adria, I just gotta say." While it's not a full confirmation, there is still some room to speculate she may not actually be playing Maxima, and Wonder Woman could still be on the table for her. We shall see. Also on Wonder Woman, Anna Nogueira states, "I mean, there'd be a sniper dot on my head if I said too much, but I try to approach every character I write from a place of what feels most true to me about them. I put on blinders and see what the character means to me before I take them onto the page." End quote. I'm quite excited to see what happens with the female characters of the DCU. They aren't going a girl boss route. Instead of perfection with Supergirl, they are going towards a fresh cinematic take. On Supergirl, James Gunn has chimed in before to outline they aren't just making her a female version of Clark Kent like the Melissa Benoist Supergirl show did, said Gunn when the project was first announced. "In our series, we see the difference between Superman, who was sent to Earth and raised by loving parents from the time he was an infant, versus Supergirl, who was raised on a rock, a chip off Krypton, and watched everyone around her die and be killed in terrible ways for the first 14 years of her life, and then came to Earth when she was a young girl. She's much more hardcore. She's not exactly the Supergirl we're used to seeing." For some reason, the Zack Snyder fanboys have went from Melissa's Supergirl was woke to she's peak now. They've also went back to the Flash Snyder established DCEU verse version of Sasha Calle as being some superior Cavill-like inspirational Supergirl version. It seemed to me there were a lot of initial complaints that she didn't even have blonde hair at the time. But again, to them, it's a war against the Gunn DCU. Initially, the Zack Snyder fans didn't even know the Woman of Tomorrow story existed, and instead of recognizing a specific story adaptation was being done, the coping began to find any way to make up a negative. It's just what they do. Had they made her like the TV show, the complaint would be she's a woke Clark Kent ripoff. Isn't your Snyder grifter playbook running thin at this point, you man-child boys? Of course it's a man-child issue. Some of these YouTubers couldn't even step out of their SnyderVerse chamber long enough to denounce the harassment through cyberbullying on Milly Alcock. She said it was ironic to see someone with a Christian profile on social media making vulgar comments on her looks. Instead of saying she has a point, their response was to say she is attacking Christianity. No, you morons, stop being fucking lunatics for a moment. There is nothing woke or agenda-based to say it's not acting very Christian to cyberbullying people. It's one thing to say you aren't sure of her look for the role, but it's another toxic category to call her a trans man and in drag. Yes, that is the shit she had to see from a specific segment of haters, mostly men who weren't visual prizes themselves. That's beyond supporting your SnyderVerse vision, that's straight-up toxicity. With that, it's today's Hubbub. Please subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss the moment of a new Hubbub video goes up. And as always, no SnyderVerse, no problem.